This is Mayor Dennis Donohue, and I'm here with uh, a new friend of mine and of Salinas, Joel Farkas, who joined uh, Salinas a few weeks ago with our Salinas Housing Summit. And Joel, welcome, and thanks for continuing the conversation.
Mr. Mayor, thank you for inviting me.
No, no, it's my pleasure because I'm particularly excited to talk about uh, how you've addressed this whole issue of affordability as and housing. As you know, in California, it, to us, it feels like California in particular. I know you have a broader perspective than that, but this issue of housing and affordability is just an ongoing conversation. And what we tried to do in Salinas was take a look at the big picture of the things that impact housing costs, supply, regulation, et cetera, but then also take a look at Salinas specific. And uh, one of the things, and one of the reasons I wanted to keep visiting with you is, uh, this issue of affordable housing, high quality, affordable, and also sets up the possibility of home ownership. That just seems like a great combination, and so wanted to visit with you a little bit about that, and also talk about your development in Riverside, where you have direct experience in working in California and delivering that product. And there's some really unique things involved in manufactured home, and so that's what would love to explore further with you. So tell us a little bit, if you would, about your background and then kind of that road to Riverside and what you're doing there.
Thank you. So my background, I've been in the real estate housing business for more than 40 years. So I've worked with a lot of different communities, mainly in the Western United States, and in particular, while I've had a breadth of experience in many different types of housing communities, California is really, I think, the most important opportunity in the United States. And I also believe that, or actually, I more than believe, I know that high quality, low cost home ownership is not only feasible, but we are actually doing this in California now. This is not a theory. It's not something that's a hypothesis. It's not something that, it's not a great idea that we wish we could do. We know how to do it. We are doing it. And Salinas in Monterey County is a is a very similar locale in terms of size and opportunity as where I am doing this right now in Southern California, in the Inland Empire in Riverside County. The Inland Empire is a huge metropolitan area, 4.7 million or more people. It's very expensive, and yet it's still attempting to be the most affordable option in Southern California, where there's LA County and Orange County and San Diego County and all the places people are familiar with. But when you're renting in Riverside County, a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment, you're still paying $2,800 to $3,800 a month, and that's just renting a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment. Um, we have been able to provide home ownership. It is manufactured housing, meaning the home is built in a factory, and there's plenty of wonderful factories very close to our project. The home is built in a factory to the highest quality tolerances. People own these homes, and their monthly payment, between their mortgage and any other kinds of things that we have, which we can get into more detail, ranges between $3,000 to $3,500 a month, and these are 3 and 4 bedroom single story homes. And parking, instead of an apartment building where you're parking in a structure, you have to take groceries into an elevator or upstairs or things like that. We have parking right next to the home, and it's really a fantastic opportunity for people who have never, in many cases, our customers have never owned a home in their life. and this is their first home,
Well,
and they're able to live with their grandmother. They have young children. Um, it's just really a fantastic opportunity, and for anyone who has read or heard or seen how housing is impossible to have high quality, low cost housing in California, um, that's not true. It can be done, and it is being done.
and there are some real particulars though in terms of besides, uh, as you mentioned, the product is, assembled as it were, but there's some real particulars, uh, in this sector of the housing market. You're dealing with the state of California. What are all the
Yes.
things, before we get to the actual house itself, its size, and some of the details you've described, because I also, uh, you also brought up, uh, the amount of utilities people can access in terms of energy and that sort of thing. But what are the trappings, as it were, that also make this possible? You're dealing with California, it's assembled elsewhere. Dealers make the initial sale. What are the particulars?
Yeah. So our community is the first manufactured housing park approved in the state of California in more than 30 years. So it is the approvals are from the state, Housing and Community Development (HCD), um, and and the reason why there just hasn't been any other park approved, like I said, in more than 30 years in the state of California. But the state of California knows how to do it, and they've seen what we've done, and they want to do more. Now, the other thing that happens is, um, whenever everyone has seen a home being built, you have different trades showing up every day and leaving every day, showing up and leaving, whether it's framing, whether it's plumbing, whether it's electricity. These homes are built by the same kinds of trades, except they're built in a factory as opposed to outside of a factory. That's really the only difference. And that means you have every single day the same people that were working on the house the day before working on the house that day and until it's done. And that means the quality is much better. That means you're not going to have walls that aren't straight. Insulation is identified. And once that house leaves the factory, um, there is a certificate that it has been completed and done and accepted, and it is inspected in the factory. So the home doesn't even leave the factory until it has been accepted and all of the components are working properly. And then those sections of the homes are delivered to a site, and then they're put together at the site, meaning they're brought in by trailers, they're put on foundations, and within 7 days of bringing them to the site, they're ready to occupy. So you have a very a very consistent group of skilled contractors building the homes, the same agencies, HUD, Housing and Urban Development, inspecting the homes, and the same agencies, HCD, further inspecting them once they've been delivered to the site. So you don't have an inconsistency of, even though you have the same trades or even the same companies, you don't have the inconsistency of which workers are showing up building it, which is why the quality is so good.
So, and then just from a transaction standpoint, uh, in terms of the first time acquisition of the home, whoever that home buyer may be, that that takes place through a dealer network, and then subsequently, if somebody were to choose to sell, then after that, the kind of the traditional realtor format,
Yeah,
comes into
yeah. So
initially, it has to be a dealer.
that's correct. The law in the state of California is a manufacturer builds the home, and a manufacturer builds a new home and can only sell it to an approved dealer approved by the state of California. So the nomenclature is a manufacturer builds the home, a dealer buys from the manufacturer and sells the home. and then, but once someone has bought that brand new home, in the future, if they choose to sell it, they can then go through the traditional MLS brokerage community to sell a um, a previously occupied home. But the initial new home, these are brand new homes. I mean, we have at our Riverside community, the oldest home we have was built in 2024. They are brand new. They're 3 and 4 bedrooms. Um, we have, because it's the first community approved by the state, and people who are familiar with manufactured housing parks are probably familiar with those that are 30, 40 or more years old. Those parks do not have very good electric, gas, water, or sewer service. Every one of our brand new spaces has a 200 amp connection. And what that means is, the old parks would have 50 or 100. What that means is your home can have a microwave, electric range, air conditioning, heating, every appliance you can imagine. And we have hookups where if you have an electric vehicle, you can plug that electric vehicle when you park it in your home into an outlet. So we have, unlike any other park that would accept a manufactured home in the state of California, we're the only one that allows a home to be built that has all the accoutrements that any brand new home would want if they chose to, and the ability, if you have an electric vehicle, to charge it at your home every single night.
Talk a little bit. So, a couple of questions, and I'm trying to recall our conversation when I had the opportunity to visit the park with you a couple weeks ago. So, is one of the things that contributes to the affordability who owns the land? Is that part of the equation? And then the financial structure, because you mentioned
Yeah, so
you were kind of making decisions. Does that contribute to affordability, or is that just kind of the peculiarities that surround manufactured homes?
that contributes a lot to the affordability because in the state of California, no matter where you're buying a home, whether a new home, whatever you're paying for that home, probably in the neighborhood of 50 to 65% of that home's cost is the land, which includes the improvements and the fees that have been paid to a municipal jurisdiction. A very small component is actual physically building the home. So when we build these communities, we are starting from scratch and we are putting all the utilities in. And when we are leasing the land, which means someone does not have to get a mortgage to buy something. Let's say, with 2/3 of the cost of the home, and then you have interest rates that have gone up. All of a sudden, you're paying a huge amount of, and you have a bigger down payment. So whenever you're hearing about how to solve an affordable housing crisis, the first few things you hear is down payment assistance programs, which cost money and don't work very well, lower interest rates, which don't work very well because lower interest rates means, many home builders will just increase the price of the home. You have all these kinds of things that sound good, but in our community, when you are leasing the land, which is representative about 2/3 of the entire cost, all a customer is doing is paying for the physical home. And the physical home is built in a factory under climate controlled conditions by people that have worked in. I mean, these are contractors that work for these companies for many years. They have health insurance, they have retirement plans, they have very high wages, and so you're just buying the home itself. So therefore, your down payment automatically is lower because you're only putting a down payment on the home, and and that's, so when you answer your question specifically about what contributes to the affordability, many different things contribute to it, some of which I've just said. But you're also, if you're going to buy or rent a home, it's in a community that has a homeowners association. And we all know that homeowners associations have very high fees in many cases. We do not have a homeowners association in our communities. Because the infrastructure for gas and electric and water and sewer um, is old and aging. There's a lot of maintenance for that. Ours is brand new. So anybody who's ever, if you're renting an apartment, you're paying for all these other ancillary things, property taxes and utility bills, um, maintenance bills, and all those kinds of things. You're paying. That's embedded in what you pay. If you own the home and the property is built properly and efficiently upfront, all of those things contribute to allowing the price to the homeowner to be much less.
But
And we know that that works.
so question. So for instance, let's go back to Riverside. Somebody, and I'm trying to remember, I think we were talking about a 13-acre parcel, give or take. So you,
Yes, yeah,
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 you bought the 13 acres. So the
bought
homeowner
the
doesn't.
13 acres.
Okay, so you bought that, and then that sets up the next part of the equation of you're essentially also the bank in terms of approving who gets in and who that and if they qualify, that type of thing. So does that contribute
Yeah,
at all?
that's a huge contributor, because also anyone who's tried to rent an apartment, you're going to end up filling out an application, and many people are going to have a hard time qualifying to become a renter, to pay a very high rent. Um, when someone comes into our park, um, basically, if they've already been approved to buy the home, and I look at and approve their credit history, and I don't send it out to third party faceless companies who to these massive sorts of AI driven credit approval processes. I look at those applications, and I'm the one who approves them. I'm the final approval. So it is much easier to qualify to come into our community than it would be to rent a 1 or 2 bedroom or maybe 3 bedroom apartment. The biggest concern, if it all sounds wonderful what I'm saying,
Right.
but I'd like to say the biggest concern when someone comes into our community, everyone who looks at it says, "I love this. We have 9-foot ceilings, 2-by-6 construction, 4 bedroom homes. I have my own space. I can park next to my home. It all sounds wonderful." But the biggest concern we get from someone who comes in is, I do not believe I can afford this. And we have been, over the last 25 years, conditioned to, a lot of people believe they cannot afford something this nice, of this high quality. And part of the reason I love talking to you about this subject in Salinas, if all anyone would hear from me after this conversation, is the following: yes, you can afford it, and it could be of higher quality than you're used to seeing,
And you can own it.
and you can own it. And that means you're not subject to every, some, who is going to be owning the apartment? It's going to be either a state or federal agency, or it's going to be a large private equity firm or a large apartment company. I mean, those are the people who own apartments.
Yeah.
So here we are interested the in private property rights. We believe an individual should be able to own their own home, and that is meaning someone else doesn't own it.
Yeah.
Now, in our case, because they lease the land, it's a combination of part lease and part home ownership, but the quality is substantially better. 3, 4 bedroom homes, as I've mentioned, and all the and brand new electric and gas and water and sewer service that's been built to accommodate a home that people are not used to being able to afford. So it's not just affordability; it's it's something you can afford, but it's extremely high quality.
Yeah. No, I know it, and I was certainly impressed with him. And and I remember we also chatted a little bit. I I asked because I'm obviously not in the construction game. I said, "Everything's one story. What happens if you do 2 stories?"
Yeah.
And then you explained, then the game changes a little bit.
It gets more expensive. It gets there's plenty of homes that can be built with 2 stories. It just gets more expensive, but we can build, if someone, if I'm again comparing it to an apartment, our homes are between 1,200 and 1,400 square feet, and they're 3 and 4 bedrooms, and they're all single story. And even if you're renting an apartment, you're typically going to be in a 4 or 5 or 6-story building, which means every time you leave the home or come home, you're going to be either going upstairs or getting in an elevator. And if you anybody who has young kids, which most people will, whether they're going to baseball practice or soccer practice or football practice, and you're buying groceries, you are carting all these things up and down stairs and elevators.
Yeah, no, you know, your parking comment is not to be taken casually. I mean, you know, it was covered and you could generally fit 2, even sometimes 3 cars depending upon, uh, uh, the size of car somebody has, and so and literally you're right next to, you know, how you're gonna enter the house, so, uh
That is correct. And there's there's the main entrance to the home on one side, and then there's the other entrance off of where you park your car that goes straight to the kitchen. So, you have the more formal entrance for guests, and then you have the more accessible entrance when you're bringing home groceries or just, um, coming back from school or other kinds of things.
Well, a couple things as we finish up. You were traveling with our mutual friend Joel Cockton, and then Wendell Cox and Carla, and so you know you've been on the road with these conversations. What's the general feedback in communities when they first hear about this, in terms of and I know Carla, we had a conversation and said, you need to build 1,000, and my first reaction was, "I don't have 13 acres where I could even," and in those 13 acres, you have 100.
Yes.
So is it hard to, uh, what's the average size of a subdivision? And, you mentioned, LA County. If you drive through there, it seems like there's no room anywhere except there is room in the there certainly is room there. So how is the, overall concept being received, and do you observe that it's growing, and what do you kinda pick up on the circuit about manufactured homes?
So I guess I can answer that two ways. Let me answer it first from the people who live in our community, and I have personally met with them. They have my cell phone number, and I've had personal meetings with them to ask them the question you just asked me. What do you like? What would you prefer to be better? What I hear from them is this is the first time that my husband and I have been able to ever buy a home. This is the first time we've been able to have my mother, live with us and have her own space. Our children have their own bedroom. We have our own space. We've bought our first home. When I began more than 40 years ago in the housing business, the median age of a home buyer was 31 years old. Today it's 57 years old. Today, the median age of a first-time home buyer is in their 40s, like 42, 43 years old. The ability to own a home today, that's the reason people think it doesn't exist. So from the people who are able to buy and live in this community, they love everything about it. I mean, they obviously we have a gated community. So one of the biggest issues was it's gated, it's private. What happens when they order Uber Eats or Amazon? How does the delivery driver get through a gate? And how do you give them a code? And how do you make sure nobody's abusing that? Those are the kinds of problems I love trying to solve. But that's the only kind of problems we have with people who live in our community. Um, as it pertains to a municipal jurisdiction approving it. Um, nobody, the City of Riverside Planning Commission and City Council unanimously, both of those agencies unanimously approved our project. So they loved it. Um, one of the more complex issues is, okay, it's in the city of Riverside, or a project like this would be in the city of Salinas, but the approval agency is the state of California. So, many cities, municipalities would have pause for that. I now have approved something where our departments don't have jurisdiction. Um, I think that those are easily workable problems, but those are kinds of the barriers are really regulatory and administrative. But we know physically and economically, even in the times that we're living in now, that we can build and deliver this product at a very low price. And I know we can do it because we are doing it every day right now.
Well, as we finish up, one of the things I don't know about you, but whether I give a talk or get on stage, and go, yeah, I wish I had said, or what did I miss? Did did I miss anything in terms of questions? And any final thoughts from you? You're obviously a manufactured home enthusiast, and I can sure see why. Uh, uh, and particularly after my visit, but any final thoughts?
My final thoughts are I am a manufactured home enthusiast because when it's raining, I've had people come to see our park and they said, well, maybe we should delay our trip because it's raining. So there's nothing to see. And I said, no, there is. Of course there is. And I take them to the factory while it's raining and they're still building our homes. So it's under climate controlled quality control. Um, the the other thing is that um, who is the the people that are in the housing um, industry. Um, Remember, I'm also a private property right homeownership enthusiast. So the people that I would say that I can probably say more than most because I'm familiar with it. People who build apartments don't necessarily like what I do because a lot of what is owned by the individual. I just own the land. The individual owns the home. An apartment builder owns everything. So clearly a rental industry. Nothing wrong with that, but it is not home ownership and it's not private property rights. Um, so that's one piece I'd like to just highlight is terms of what if this is such a great idea, why isn't it done everywhere? Um, I believe your community, Salinas, has as much um, uh, uh, commonality with what we are doing in Riverside as almost anything I've seen in the state of California. And what we're doing doesn't have to be the only solution for housing in Salinas, but it is a very significant solution if the citizens of Salinas believe that their neighbors and friends would like to own a home. They'd like to have more than a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, and they'd like their kids and their parents to either live next to them or with them. If your citizens believe that, we can be a big part to help Salinas achieve that goal.
Well, those are great words to end on, and you know, families are really the backbone of our community, and I certainly was struck by when I saw the homes, and you're pointing that out, the similarities and multiple generations, and that becomes possible, comfortable, and in your words, high quality and affordable, and leading to home ownership. It sounds like a good formula. So, Joel, thanks very much for your time, and nice to catch up, and hope to see you again in Riverside and possibly in Salinas. We'd enjoy that.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. Good luck,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Thanks, Joel.